All right, something to consider. When you die, your digital brand will still be alive. And who knows for how long, perhaps forever, depending what happens with the internet. But just for the moment, think what that means, that you're no longer on, you're not managing, you're not posting updates on Facebook, and yet you're alive on the web, and your brand is alive on the web. What's interesting is, it's of more importance, of course, now while you're alive. But many of us don't manage our brand. I could probably ask, and a portion of you would say, yes, that you're still on MySpace. You may not use it. You may have forgotten your password. But there's a record of what you've done on MySpace, which maybe now you're not so proud of, or doesn't reflect you accurately. And you need to think, do I need to go back and manage that? Do I need to check in if you can remember your password? Others of you, perhaps a little bit older, on Friendster, which was the first successful social networking site. Same thing there. What's our presence there? What's our digital imprint? Because now it's findable by search. And before I go too much further, I want to get to the question and answer of what is a brand. Before we talk digital, what is a brand? There's about 500 definitions of brand and branding. So we won't go through them all, but I can sum it up in 3 Ps. And it's a sort of a mathematical equation. It's a simple math, so it won't be too problematic. I'm not good at advanced math. So basically, it's your performance plus how you present your performance equals your perception, and thus your brand value. So it's your performance plus how it's presented equals the perception of your brand and brand value. So that said, you can deduce that, yes, it matters how you do in class, in life, in your job, with others, but it's also how you present it. If you cure cancer, if Justin Blau, former student, cured cancer, hello, Sarah Newman, but didn't tell anyone about it, he has not presented it well, right? But if he does present it well, there's a perception out there and a brand value, the hero who cured cancer. So it's not just what you do, it's how you present what you do and how it's perceived by others. Part of it you can control, and others, as with all brands, it's not up to you, it's up to how others perceive you, how others like and engage and respect and value what you offer, which is varying degrees. And this whole idea of brand you came about from a legendary guru and tech thinker, Tom Peters. And this was over a decade ago, where he basically said, you're a brand. And some people feel uncomfortable with this. And brands used to just be products. Then it was services. Then it was ideas and concepts. But today, people are branded. Even nations are branded. When you think China, it's got a brand. When you think Somalia, it's got a brand. When you think France, it has different brand values. Susie Miller is a Harvard-educated doctor. And when she did a race in the desert in Chile, the Atacama Desert, where the miners were just in, she was wearing some Harvard sweatpants, and the gentleman, Emma's father, Mr. Phillips, said, oh, Susie Harvard. From that point, she was branded to Mr. Phillips as Susie Harvard, simply by what she wears. And we all do this. We wear things to be perceived a certain way, and this needs to translate onto the web, where, anyone seen The Social Network? How many of you? Several great lines. One of them, Facebook, in this case, is the digitalization of real life. So our real lives are being put and placed on the web, partly because of our actions and what we put there. This is just the digital world we live in right now. First impressions happen now often online, before you can meet someone. It's very important how you present yourself in order to be perceived, depending what you want to do. If you don't care, you're brand negligent, which is entirely your right, you will suffer the consequences, especially professionally. There was a former student who shall remain nameless, was applying for a job in a presidential campaign last cycle and couldn't get an interview, and it was sort of surprising. I went to her Facebook profile, and she had sort of a picture that was like a gang thing. That's what it seemed to me. I don't know what she was trying to do, but I can bet that her profile was looked at and said, we don't want that. That it's a question of your judgment. Why would you put that up there to present that? You're trying to get on a presidential campaign. And I'm going to give you some statistics in a few minutes, especially about recruiters, how many of them are looking online at your profiles and searching about you. So is there anyone here brave enough to let me Google them and see what we find. What's your name? How do you spell your last name? Fiss. Fiss? All right. Is this right? You're on Twitter. Are you? So pretty cool. It helps you have. So Olivia's branded, and it's positive, and she shows at the top of Google results. Now, let's go with a name that's not so unique. Olivia Fass is pretty rare. Yes, sir. Spell? S-W-I-R-S-K-Y. Is this right? Jayspierski? Is that right or wrong?
No. Jake.
Aha, Big Jake.
Yeah.
Where are you from, the West?
No, New York.
Oh, it's
S-W-I-R-S-K-Y.
Jake, you are killing me.
Sorry.
S-W?
I-R.
Uh-huh.
S-K-Y.
Wow. Facebook. So here's the thing. Facebook, of course, is now searchable by Google. So what you put up there is findable to the general public unless you get really ratchet down or become Chris Keipel, who has no Facebook profile, the ultimate brand management as far as Facebook is concerned. So, Jake, anything up here we should be worried about or you should be worried about? That moment's over, Gumby. So obviously you know it's Halloween unless you do this all year long. It's okay to add you as a friend? Let me know later. So you can see a couple things. You're findable, you're searchable, and what you're presented on the web is there. I'm going to show you another person with a pretty regular name. Another former student, Allison Burke. A very common name, right? This is not like Olivia and Jake, very rare names. And of all the Allison Burkes in the US or in the world, she comes up on top on Twitter because she twitters and tweets a lot. So she has really managed her brand. And if you look across Allison's profiles, so you see her picture, right? Pleasant, professional, no Gumby, sorry Jake. No sort of weird Halloween stuff. So let's see if we can find her here and see, do you think she's going to have the same picture on her Facebook profile? She usually does. Today she put, because she's on a campaign, she runs Twitter campaigns for offices now. Usually her profile picture is the same across. So she wants to be identified and viewed as the same person, so it's easy for someone to see that's her. Hey Josh, how are you?
Good, how are you doing?
Good. So just a couple off-the-cuff examples about how findable we all are on the web today and what shows up when you're there. And we'll go into some statistics again, but I'll throw one out right now. According to Harvard Business Review, recent article, 75% of recruiters and HR professionals search candidates online. They research them online before interviewing, hiring, weeding them out. So if you're doing this, some gang signal on your profile or somewhere it's posted, it's probably being tougher for you to make that first cut unless there's some, I don't know, anti-gang group that really wants the gang viewpoint, and you've got it. So some other examples. There's a former student, Jennifer Loray. Her main job is at Edelman PR. But when I was, in the past year, looking at sort of home stuff and places to find ideas, I came across this blog. I just thought, wow, that's beautiful. And I started going down and pictures, and I just love the layout. And it turns out this is Jennifer Loray's blog. And it's not really about her, right? It's about what she finds interesting out there for fashion. And it's really cool. And this is what she does as a hobby. But it's a great way to brand yourself, blogging on something that interests you. In her case, this is, again, she's not, as far as I know, paid for this. Edelman's who she works for, but this one she's on top of it. And she's obviously into it. But a great way to brand yourself, especially blogging on something you like and something you know about, something that's going to motivate you to care about. I thought that was an interesting thing to share. There's another student, Nicole Rogers. And if you've ever taken a class with me, you'll know I like to talk about narrative and story. And then to ward off any complaints that it's too hard to tell a story, I pull out a Cliff Bar. Anyone have one here? On the back of a Cliff Bar, go check it out, there's a story about how it started. And it involves a mother, a father, a trombone, a dog, the Sierra Nevada mountains, and more. That's on the back of an energy bar. It means everyone can do a story. So Nicole got motivated when she saw that Cliff Bars were looking for bloggers. She applied and was named one of their bloggers, Cliff Bar Adventures. She's got a year's supply worth of Cliff Bars, and she's blogging, again, above and beyond her normal job. And this is, as you know, what's so wonderful about the web. You can produce things. You don't need permission. The barriers to entry are low. If on a Monday you want to talk poetry, on a Tuesday politics, you can do it. If Wednesday you want to talk travel, and Thursday you want to talk biochemistry, you can do it. And then take the weekend off and start it again. Just a cool way, I think, for you to express yourself on the web. Brand yourself digitally, because the adults out there, who are for the most part doing the hiring, don't know how to do this nearly as well as you. That's the good news. Justin Blau just got hired by a hotel, St. Gregory, to do social media work, and in fact wrote up their social media policy because they didn't have one. You know, who can tweet what? Who can comment? When do you comment? What do you say? What's our message? Things that you might take for granted, but a lot of organizations don't have. Justin developed it and has it, and the other hotels in the chain now want that too because they realize the value of this type of thing. I have a friend, Sarah Rose, and I hesitate to bring her up, but I'm going to. Why do I hesitate? Because she is an author of a great book, All the Tea in China. So she writes this book, and it's very highbrow. It's a true story about a British person went to China and took tea back to Britain. This is 100 plus years ago. Well, I got a message recently, and I didn't know what to do with it. She's doing some reality show that's basically GBB is the name of it, I believe. Girls Who Date Boys Who Like Boys. She dated a guy who turned out to be gay, and she found out during their relationship. Now, why am I bringing this up? She had a certain brand, Harvard, author, China, published. Now, it's going to change. Reality show, dating, guys who wanted to date another guy, not her. That's a big shift. That's why I've been hesitant to talk with her, because I don't know if it's the best thing to go from writing a book to being on a reality show in the starters. Forget the topic, right? Reality shows can be dangerous. If anyone watched DC Housewives and the Salahis, that couple got carved up like a Thanksgiving turkey and tossed out the door. Anyone have an iPad? No iPads. One? What's your name? How are you, Liz? Emma, you have an iPad? So there's a woman who flew from Japan to San Francisco when the iPads first came out, simply to be the first one in Japan to have an iPad. So that flight must have cost 2 or 3 times more than the iPad itself, right? And all the time in the air. The picture of her was very happy. She wanted to be branded as tech savvy, ahead of the curve, and probably a smart move. These are some of the lengths people are willing to go to brand themselves, and including digitally. All right, let's talk about me. I've talked a lot about other people, and some of you didn't know I was going to do it. So basically raised in California. I went to an undergraduate school, University of California, Davis, that has a great wine program. My beer drinking buddies turned out to be winemakers. So I learned about wine, and I like wine. I also like beer, good beer, microbrews, Sierra Nevada, Dogfish Head, all sorts of things. I used to like Sam's when I was in Boston. I tried to drink local beer. What's the point? Point is, you cannot, and if you can, I'll buy you dinner at any restaurant in DC, find a picture of me on the web drinking, or even with a drink in my hand. It's not that I don't drink, I do. It's legal, it's enjoyable, I like it. I don't want to get a perception out there by several pictures with a drink in the hand. You might say, well, what's wrong with that? Well, that seems like work. Every time there's a camera, the drink goes down or behind my back. You can't find it. There's a freshman here a couple years ago, Lexi Lehman, who came close to finding one, but it wasn't me holding it, it was someone putting a drink in front of my face. You can't find it. If you do, you've got dinner on me. And again, you might say, well, why do this? This seems like a lot of work managing a brand. Kind of, but why do you pose for a picture in the first place? Posing is unnatural. You were doing something, and then a photographer comes up, and they want you to pose. That's weird to me. That's like, talk about to me almost being fake. All of a sudden you're smiling and look at the camera. So first off, you're already committing the fakery by posing. Then the question becomes, why do you want to have a drink in your hand? If you work for a beer company, a winery, a distribution, I get it. This is part of your business. If you don't, why do you want that? So it's something for you to think about. And this is just one small example that I give that we commit it, except for myself, all the time, because we don't think about it, right? You're there, you're at an event, those of us over 21, and the picture's taken, it's on the web. And also from the social network, the internet is like ink. It's there. Really tough to get rid of. Even if you tell your friend to take it down, someone else may have already posted up. Maybe someone you don't know. So again, things to think about in terms of how you present yourself, because it's going to go on the web. So some statistics. I've promised some statistics. Here we go. 92% of toddlers, newborn babies, have an online presence. Oh my gosh, 92%. How is this possible? It's their parents putting their pictures up on their own Facebook or other sites, on the web, Flickr, etc. Some of those toddlers were on the web before birth with an ultrasound. So this is where the web's going, that it's just going to be air and everywhere. Imagine growing up your whole life and you're on the web, right? That has profound implications for how people are perceived on the internet. YouTube. It's number 2 after Google for search. Not for video, that's just the format. For search, people are searching for information by YouTube. So first off, on a positive sense, are you on YouTube, and if so, how? How are you presenting yourself? Because imagine not being on Google. You'd be tough to find, or an organization you work for is tough to find. And not all my examples and lessons today are negative, like don't hold a drink in a picture and be careful of this and blah, blah, blah. It's also positive. I think in the not too distant future, it will become normal to have all of us do videos that we apply for jobs. So that involves a different skill set. There's no person interacting with you. You've got to look and communicate decent enough for the job, and you'll be findable on YouTube, findable on the web. I already mentioned about recruiters. 75% of them are searching you when you apply for a job online, checking you out. What is this about? Learning about you. And again, maybe it's not all negative, but they're trying to find out something about you. Are you going to be a right fit? Because when you get to the working world, it's not, a lot of you have the skills, then they want to know, do you have the right fit? Are you a team player? Will you like our culture? Will you get along with everyone we have here? All right, so what to do? You've had statistics, we've talked about some examples out there, real life examples. What to do? Number 1, you have to think and then commit to manage your brand digitally. It takes a little bit of work. All management does. It's not a free ride there. The only and best person to manage your brand is who? Exactly right, you. Yes, if you're wealthy enough, you could pay someone to do it. That's great if you get to that point. Until you get there, only you can manage your brand. You have to realize something, that there's competing spheres. You have the personal and the professional. There's a lot of blurring there, and it becomes really tough. I know some people that try and segment totally out and just say, oh, I won't be on Facebook because I don't want this to impact me professionally. Or perhaps they're on Facebook but won't co-friend any coworkers. They won't friend any coworkers. They won't friend anyone that they're in the same business with because they don't want personal stuff showing up into the workplace, so to speak. I think what's happening, though, is that we're just becoming whole people, that there is going to be no distinction. It's going to be blended and blurred and together. This means it's an extra challenge to how you present yourself to others that you may not know who may want to hire you. So something to consider as you manage yourself and your brand. And the other thing you have to decide related to this, what is private and what is public? And we've heard about Facebook and what they've been going through and they're changing privacy standards, but that's with other sites too. And also what do you think is private and what is out there for consumption? Some people are very free and they put stuff out there. It sometimes shocks and surprises me. I had a recent student who put stuff up there that I had to unfriend them because their posts were so crazily inappropriate that I would hesitate to show them in class because I would get in trouble. And this is something for us to think about. Maybe you don't crazy post, but what are you putting out there? Are you putting a joke that you think everyone gets, but maybe they don't? Are you commenting on something that seems clear to you, but not clear to others? Hello, Bona Park, how are you? Social media whiz with Sweet Green. So connected to this management is you have to design your profiles and your pages. Now, how do you present these things? Especially now with Twitter making changes. Twitter's not going away, by the way. I first heard about it in 2007 when some friends went to South by Southwest. They came back. I said, oh, that sounds interesting. Got on. It was a little tough to figure out, I'll be honest, a little tough. I tried to bring it in the classroom. It was a little tough to do that too. It took me about a year plus to sort of figure out the value add. Allison Burke, the student I mentioned, she resented the fact of having to do this for class, didn't want to do it, and now her job is based on teaching people how to do Twitter. Now, it's not going away. It's a place you should be. If you're trying to get a communication job or work in that field, and someone says, are you on Twitter? I can't imagine if you answered no, how you would explain that, right? I'm speechless. I don't know how you would explain that away, that you don't like it. That's not good enough. Right, so you have to think about the places you want to be. Facebook, obvious. We know the percents. Twitter, I think, is, again, not going away and increasing its value. And the difference is Facebook is really for who you know, for the most part. And Twitter is more, not a social network, but an information network. Who you don't know, who you might want to know. Allison has met CEOs and people via tweets. They follow each other because she posts some interesting stuff. That's pretty cool that you can communicate with a CEO of a company. How would you do that before the internet? How would you do that before Twitter, right? Now you can, which means you've got to manage how your profile on Twitter, right? So you're findable, but also acceptable and professional in what you're doing. So how many of you, today's election day, and again, thank you for being here. How many of you voted? Okay, so a decent percent. I had earlier my sticker, right, which says I voted. Now, if I wasn't doing this talk, how many people, I voted about 5 or 6 o'clock this evening, how many people would have seen that I voted sticker I had on? Maybe a few on the couple blocks walk home, and maybe no one I knew. I went onto Facebook before I came here and put it on, I voted. This way, digitally, people know I voted, way more than my physical sticker on there. The power of digital and branding yourself. Speaking of, let me show you something. Here's another thing. I mentioned YouTube as sort of where things are going with jobs and professional, let alone PR and communication. I think people will have, instead of resumes, or in addition to resumes, web profiles. This was done by a colleague, Chris Hand, and basically it's an intro. It has career highlights. It's all clickable. It's all shareable. So this means if you want stuff to show, you got to produce content that's web friendly, whether it's a blog or tweets or an article, whatever it is. And you can see, I think, how much superior this is to a resume. You've got logos, you've got colors, you've got brief descriptors. You can click all these links and go to those places. Oh, what's this channel 13? Well, you can click to it and find out. So I think this is where people are heading, is an online web profile that you can contact people. How much easier is this to send someone an email, whether you know them or not, interviewed or not, and said, here's my web profile. I'd love for your feedback or talk to you if you think I'm a good match, as opposed to, how do I get you my resume? Hard copy, attachment. Oh, attachments kill me. It takes so long to open them. And if you don't know someone, they might think it's a virus. They don't want to open it up. There's a risk there. So I think all this stuff is where it's heading. Breton.
I have a couple of questions.
Please.
First of all, my friend is a graphic design student, and she has a webpage just like this, and she also has a resume. And I'm wondering, if you have a resume and you also have a webpage like this, would you recommend sending both or just one or the other? And then send, first of all, sending the resume, and then if they're interested, then sending this. Because someone came to speak to our intro class and said that they submitted a resume and didn't get any response, and then they submitted their blog and they got a response within a week.
This makes sense. Of course, everything is the context and the situation and the particulars involved. To me, it would be initially to send the web, the blog, the link, the profile, and then depending if you hear anything or not, you could follow up the resume. But I would go with the web first. It's clickable, it's shareable. So imagine an HR person gets your profile and says, Madison Cook, this is great. And they send it on to a decision maker who they know is looking for someone, right? Very easy to do, forward. They don't, again, got to print anything out. They don't have to open attachments. It's what the web is. It's shareable, it's engaging, and it's way more visual than basically black ink on paper. So this is where I think things are going. And this is what I think you should be thinking about when you're managing yourself, your career, your brand digitally. So Breton had good timing, so it's just about to end and wrap up and have time for a few questions or comments. Breton, again, but before we get number 2, does anyone have any other questions? All right, Breton.
Okay, my other question was how this compares to LinkedIn. Because, okay, cool. Do you want me to stand up?
So he was asking about LinkedIn. Breton, you're not shy.
No, I'm not.
So let's ask a question. How many people, raise your hand, are on LinkedIn? Good. Not great, almost great, good. I think that universities should mandate freshmen when they come into school to be on LinkedIn. Just along with, get your vaccinations, pay your tuition, get your classes and books, get on LinkedIn. This is something that's going to be good for you, that's going to help you. It's Facebook, as those of you on it know, without the fun. It's a place to interact with professionals and position yourself in a professional sphere with a resume and your experience, even if it's interning. Breton.
Okay, so my other question was, one of my professors recently invited to join her LinkedIn network, and I've been avoiding it for a while, but I figured, hey, why not? Maybe this will raise my grade a little bit. So I joined it, and then I found my mom on there, and she was refusing to add me, I think out of spite because I won't add her on Facebook. But then I convinced her to, and she said that she just doesn't see the point of it. And, that
being LinkedIn?
Right, she doesn't see the point of LinkedIn. She said that it really hasn't done anything for her, blah, 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 blah. But then, compared to your web profile, which is so much, you can get so much more out of that. How would you compare the web profile to LinkedIn, like the advantages and disadvantages, how much more difficult it is to set up? Like, how did you set up that web profile for people that are less web savvy?
Great questions. So let me jump on a few things. There's Susie Miller. The strength of LinkedIn is this. You've heard of this 6 degrees of separation. It was a play. It was about someone who pretended to be related to an actor and really wasn't. But the point was, through 6 people mathematically, you can be connected to literally anyone in the world. Example, I happen to know from grad school the Prime Minister of Mongolia. So through me, one connection, you can now know the Prime Minister of Mongolia. Now imagine who that Prime Minister has met, other heads of states, diplomats, etc. Through just two connections, you know the people they know. So imagine who they know. So through 6, you've got the world. This is it. So I tell people that are going back out to San Francisco and so happy about the Giants winning the World Series, where I used to live, I've got 1,001 friends starting with the mayor of that city on downward. I don't know what they all do, right? But if you go on LinkedIn and you see them and they're linked to me and they're doing what you want to do, that means you can talk to them, you can email them, and much greater chance to connect with them, get feedback, or get help. So that's, Breton, the answer for your mother. I've used LinkedIn for consulting jobs before I moved to Washington, D.C., so I know it works actually. The recent CFO of Oracle, CFO, Chief Financial Officer, so this is high level, was found on LinkedIn. He had a profile on LinkedIn, the Oracle recruiters found him, and he was hired, right? So to me, it's no-brainer. The basics are Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And then after that, just depends what you're into. If you're into music, MySpace. If you want to blog, Tumblr is a good blog. So there's some of those things. The other part of the question is, if you're not web savvy, how do you do this? Well, find one of the great thing about your generation is you have friends who are web savvy. They can do this stuff. So ask them if they'll do it. Worst case scenario, it's like, you pay for other investments professionally. Could be clothing, could be to get your resume professionally done, could be to have training, whatever it is. Well, then you would pay to have your web profile put up. I'm sure most of you have friends who can do this. It doesn't have to be fancy, it can be very basic. Show off what you have. And by the way, one thing that I routinely see college students do that I think is a huge error is not put their expertise on computer. And I don't mean just Excel and Word, et cetera. I mean that you're on Facebook, Twitter, whatever social media sites. You grew up with this. You take it for granted. The adults hiring you want to know you can do this. So put it on your resume, put it in your profile, show them you can do it. You know? Let them see what you can do, tell them what you can do. So no one takes it for granted and they think, oh, they must be like Chris Keipel, not on Facebook, who's recently been asked to do a social media plan for his law firm. How's that going?
Quite well, I'm going to hire you.
Well, we'll talk. All right. Before our final wrap, Breton, third question, or is that it?
No, that's about it. I guess just how did you come to have your web page? Not your LinkedIn, the other one.
Yeah, this is guy Chris Hand. You can get a hold of him with career handlers. You can email me off my contact. I'll get you his email. You can set it up. It's very basic. This is basic, right? This is just, you know.
It's basic, but it's good. I mean, my graphic design, I mean, it has everything needed, like you were mentioning, the graphics and everything. It's better than, you know, the basic resume, and better than just having the LinkedIn profile, which everyone can have very easily, you know? It shows an individual
Right.
profile.
And also when others, if you're competing against those who are on LinkedIn, you send them your web profile. This shows, if you have a web profile, what does this communicate to an employer? Jake? Online? What else?
Also like branding yourself and how you're, digitally savvy.
Digitally savvy. You have this, right? Wow, what's this?
I think it's very innovative right now.
Right now it is. So you're ahead of the curve if you do this. At some point, I think it'll be that you have to do it, right? You have to do it to keep up because others are doing it. Jake?
Just a question. I'm kind of a novice on LinkedIn. It connects you to. Exactly, how does it work?
So this is Susie Miller. Let's say you want to go to med school, right? She's a doctor. So right here, it says right here, International Emergency Physician. So through me, you know her because her and I are linked, and you would search this out, right? And you would see who I'm connected to. And there's ways to search and look through these profiles.
So it's almost like the job version of Facebook mutual friends.
It's Facebook without the fun, basically. You know, and she's got a summary here. She's got a public profile. She's got her own blog. So check it out. Susie has an MD
Oh wow, I didn't want to.
admit blog. And if you're into it, then you could hire Susie to go to med school. So there's a lot of stuff here. And again, you're connected to her. And then who knows who she's connected to? She's in the medical world, right? Maybe you wanted to do medical work in Latin America, and Susie's been there delivering babies in Guatemala, which she has. Now you could get, how was that? What did you need to do that? Blah, 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 blah. You can learn through LinkedIn about others. Yes?
Oh, okay. It's on. So I started using Hashable recently. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
Heard, but not using, but please continue.
It
Well,
well, it's
Mashable or
just
Hashable?
Hashable.
Yes.
It just goes basically through LinkedIn, and if let's say you wanted to introduce Jake to Susan, you could set up an email through their LinkedIn's, and they would get emails, and
Very
then
cool.
you set up like your own Hashable account so you can introduce people, and it's basically it makes the networking and like they have icebreakers, and like it just kind of tells you how to introduce people to other people.
What's your name?
Sarah Brody.
How did you find this, Sarah?
My cousin is an internet venture capitalist person. He does
Oh,
all of this.
So now, if any of you want to go in the internet world or meet a VC, talk to Sarah,
Yeah.
either real time or online. So this also, so just today I've learned two new things.
Yeah,
One is
you
this
can do it on
Hashable,
Twitter.
and this other one is when you want to shorten a URL, a lot of you may use like tinyurl or bit.ly. There's a new one from Google that just started that really shortens the URL. So if you're trying to post something on Twitter, this one really gets the URLs down, which leaves you more time and space to put a message on your tweets. Yes, in the back.
Give you the reporting that Bitly does?
Say that again?
Does it give you the reporting that Bitly does?
I don't know because I just found about it today. Can you find out and let me know? Good. So it's just, you just go to goo.gl. It's Google with a period between the goo and the GL. Thank you for the Hashable, Sarah. Yes?
I have a question about LinkedIn.
LinkedIn questions?
How important do you think it is to upgrade your account? How important do you think it is to upgrade your account so that way you can have those messages that you could send
Right.
per se if you pay or don't pay?
Great question. So LinkedIn, like most web features today, is free for the basic level. And I have 2 profiles on LinkedIn. So link to me if you want to. Just find both profiles. I can explain to you why that happened if you want. But basically, I think free's enough. But if you really want to get through to someone and you're not getting any traction, it might be worth investing the money because it's your career. Start with the free. If you find out you need the more, because that's what I did. I used the pay for a while. I got some consulting jobs, and now I'm back on the free. Susie, do you pay or are you free? Free. So start free and then look for the paid one if you need it, would be my advice.
Do people who have it so you could do when you pay and message them, do they find that they're accepting of that
If you're on LinkedIn, you're basically saying, I'm open, I want to interact.
Okay.
By the way, the other strength is, this may come as a surprise, your friends will not help you as much as people you don't know. Why is that? Because your friends are already your friends. They don't need to. They've proven themselves. You'll still be friends. It's people you don't know who are trying to meet others and help others, and sort of good karma will help you often more in the hopes that someone will help them. Maybe you, maybe not you, right? This is, again, the strength of LinkedIn. People you don't yet know, but it's leveraged by the fact there's potentially a commonality. So if you really want to meet a doctor who's working in New Zealand because you want to go to New Zealand, going through Susie, you might meet them and a better chance. Certainly cheaper than flying to New Zealand.
Yeah.
Right. Any last questions? Oh, Dr. Miller.
So you're a communications professor, and obviously you're very good at this, but what do you say to people who aren't communication professionals? How much time do you think they have to spend managing their brand?
Great question. I don't really think about it, I just do it. If you ask me to estimate the real management, I would say it's really pre-management that you're realizing I'm not going to put this picture up there, I'm not going to take this picture. It's more the thinking of what not to do and then also what to do. And on the positive front, on what to do, yes, set up your own web profile. You're going to have to develop the content. So that will take some time, but you do that once and then you update, just like with a resume. As far as new websites, here's the challenge is that who thought that MySpace would literally be dying, right, a few years ago when it was ahead of Facebook? But it is. Friendster is as good in the grave. It's still technically heart beating. We don't know what's ahead for social networks and sites and what's going to happen. So you have to keep seeing which makes sense, and that takes a little bit of time. You have to keep listening and learning. I've not yet committed to Tumblr. I might. Hashable, I'm definitely going to check out. Thank you, Sarah. So I would say if you forced me to put a number on it, I would say on average, you could do it successfully over a period of a year, 15 to 30 minutes a week. That's by not doing dumb things and setting up the smart things, right? It's not that much because you're already living on the web. You have to live on the web. Almost all of us have to live on the web. We want to live on the web. We're more engaged. We're more connected. We can present ourselves, whereas you could never do this before. How would you do this stuff, right? You'd have to do it in person. Now you can do your elevator speech via web profile to someone you've never met and take it from there. That answer? Any last final questions? All right, I want to thank you again. It's been an honor and a pleasure, and hopefully this was helpful and instructive.